let's jump into another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at the career of Gonçalo Ramos.
He's a young footballer.
Yeah, and he's been making waves, right?
He has.
So we've got his biography here.
That'll stack you.
A stack of career stats.
To dig into.
Yeah, to really dig into and figure out what's going on with this guy. You might know him from,
That hat trick.
Yeah, that incredible World Cup hat trick, but...
We're going way beyond that.
Oh, yeah, we're going way beyond the headlines. We're going to, really try to get a sense of him.
As a player.
Yeah. So
What makes him tick? How did he get to where he is?
what's fascinating about him, I think, is we're seeing him develop, in
Yeah.
real time, right? We see him from those early days in the Benfica Academy all the way to, the pressure cooker of Paris Saint-Germain.
And that's what's so interesting to me. It's like, how did he get there, and what can we glean from his journey?
Right.
Like, how high is his ceiling? Yeah, how good can he be? I mean, let's start with that Benfica Academy, which he joined at 12 years old.
12.
Incredible.
Most kids, are just starting to dream of
Yeah.
playing professionally.
You're still playing, in the park with your friends at 12,
Mm.
and he's out there, getting scouted by Benfica. Think about that for a sec. These days, a lot of players will play for 3, 4, 5 different youth clubs.
Yeah.
But he spent his, really formative years immersed in this Benfica system. So he's learning their style, their tactics.
It's like a football apprenticeship almost.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he's fluent in Benfica.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, right? Because it gives him a deep understanding of their philosophy, but it also makes you wonder, how adaptable is he?
Right. Can he leave that and go to a totally different system? Well, he certainly made an impact in his debut, I'll say that. July 21st, 2020, right? He comes on as a substitute.
2 goals.
2 goals. Liga NOS match.
Liga NOS.
Yeah, that's the top professional league in Portugal.
In Portugal, right. So for him to come on and do that, that's a sign of things to come.
And it wasn't just like a one-off thing. He followed that up with a dominant performance in the UEFA Youth League.
Yeah, which is, for people who don't know, it's like the Champions League for youth teams. So the best young players in all of Europe are in this.
Yeah. And so it's fierce competition.
They're high level.
And he scores 2 goals against Dinamo Zagreb in the quarterfinals.
You start to see, his finishing ability really come out there, that goal-scoring instinct.
Right. But then came a major turning point, I think. Darwin Nunez, who
That's
was...
Benfica's star striker.
Yeah, departs for Liverpool.
Big money move, I think.
Yeah. And so suddenly there's this Ramos-shaped hole in the attack.
So huge opportunity for him to step up. And he did step up with an amazing season. 14 goals, 6 assists.
I think the match that really put him on the map
Was against Bruges.
Bruges, yeah.
Yeah.
Champions League, right?
Yeah, that's the pinnacle of...
That's the big time of club football in Europe.
And he scores 2 goals.
It's his arrival on the world stage, I think.
Yeah. And he wasn't just scoring goals. He's
making things happen.
His movement, his ability to create space
Yeah.
for himself, for his teammates.
And it all starts to come together.
And he finishes that season.
As the second highest goal scorer in the entire league.
Wow. And then?
And then comes the move to PSG in August of 2023.
August 2023, okay.
Initially on loan, but with a buy option.
And how much was that buy option?
80 million euros.
80 million. Okay, so you go from,
Yeah.
like you said, you go from this club that develops young talent to this,
It's giant, yes.
this mega club.
Yeah.
Talk about pressure.
It's a very different system, too, right?
Yeah.
Benfica is known for its more tactical, possession-based approach, whereas PSG is about attacking flair, individual brilliance.
So how did he adapt to that?
Well, his first start was against Lorient, a relatively, low-stakes match.
Okay.
And you could sense he was still trying to find his feet.
Yeah, getting used to it.
But then comes Le Classique,
Ah, yes.
PSG versus Marseille. It's not just a football match. It's like a cultural clash, a battle for bragging rights in France. The pressure is immense.
And Gonçalo Ramos.
Steps up and scores 2 goals, leading PSG to a 4-0 victory.
In the Classic. That's
And
really big.
Classique, no less. And so that performance cements his place in the hearts of PSG fans. He's not just a prospect anymore.
He's the real deal.
He's a match winner.
It's interesting, right? It seems like that match, that Marseille match was like a turning point for him. It's like he needed that validation.
To kind of settle in.
And then he just took off.
He really blossomed after that, yeah.
It's like he wasn't just scoring goals. He was like dictating the pace of the game.
Yeah.
Linking up with...
Yeah, he's linking up with Mbappe.
Yeah, Mbappe and Neymar.
Yeah.
And you could see, like, you know, that tactical awareness, that understanding of space that he got at Benfica. You know, it was really showing.
And it wasn't just that he was surrounded by this world-class talent.
Right.
He was actually making those guys better.
In what ways?
His off-the-ball movement is incredible. He's constantly creating space for his teammates, drawing defenders away, opening up passing lanes. You don't always see that in young forwards, that kind of selfless play.
So he's not just like a goal scorer, he's like a facilitator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He makes things happen for other people.
Okay.
And that's what makes him so valuable, because he's not reliant on just his own ability to score. He can actually elevate the entire team's attack.
But before we get too deep into the PSG journey, I want to rewind a bit, go back to, you know...
The World Cup.
That World Cup hat trick. We can't talk about Gonçalo Ramos without talking about that.
Right. That's when he became like a global superstar, I think.
It's December 6th, 2022, right? Portugal's facing Switzerland. Crucial World Cup knockout game.
Do or die.
And the coach makes this, like, shocking decision.
To bench Ronaldo.
Benches Ronaldo.
One of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
To bench him in a World Cup, that's a massive gamble. And it paid off big time.
And in steps.
21-year-old Gonçalo Ramos.
Yeah, a 21-year-old.
Who'd only played a handful of games for the senior national team at that point.
Talk about pressure, right? Like stepping into...
the shoes of a legend.
The shoes of a legend on the biggest stage.
And what does he do?
Hat trick.
Scores a hat trick. Leads Portugal to a 6-1 victory.
6-1?
I mean, that performance, it sent shockwaves through football. The first player to score a hat trick in a World Cup knockout game since 1990.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, everyone was comparing him to Ronaldo.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Saying he was the heir apparent. I mean, it was a whirlwind of attention.
Yeah.
But, you know, he didn't let it go to his head, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, he seems so, like, you know, level-headed about it.
He took it all in stride.
Yeah, no crazy celebrations, no signs of arrogance. It's like he was just
focused.
Yeah.
Grounded.
And, you know, that's what impresses me, right? It's like he didn't get caught up in the hype. He just kept his head down and kept working.
Yeah, and that speaks volumes about his character, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because talent alone can only take you so far. It's the work ethic, the dedication, the humility that really separates the good players from the great ones.
And that's something we see throughout his career, right? Even before the World Cup, even before PSG. Like, you know, we're looking back and we're like, oh, wow, he was showing signs.
Like, remember, top scorer at the Under-19 European Championships back in 2019.
Yeah.
4 goals in that tournament. Leads Portugal to the final. I mean, that's where you start to see his potential on the international stage.
Right.
And then he follows that up with a strong showing in the Under-21 Euros a couple years later.
So it's clear that, like, he's always had this knack for scoring goals no matter the level.
Yeah, no matter the competition. And, you know, he's also got this incredible versatility.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's not just a striker.
He can play as a central striker, on the wings, even as like a second striker. Yeah. You know, he's comfortable anywhere in attack.
Right. So let's dive into, like, the numbers a bit. You mentioned he was the second highest scorer in the Portuguese league.
19 goals that season,
yeah.
Which is even more remarkable when you consider he wasn't even a regular starter for the first half of the year.
Wow. Okay.
And he wasn't just a goal scorer. He was also creating chances for his teammates. Finished with 8 assists.
Okay.
And then in the Champions League, even more impressive, 7 goals and 14 appearances. He was tormenting some of the best defenses in Europe.
And you know what's striking to me is just, like, his efficiency. It's like he doesn't waste chances.
He's clinical.
Yeah.
You know, and he can score in so many different ways. Tap-ins, headers, volleys, long-range shots.
The full arsenal.
Exactly. He's not a one-dimensional striker. He's a complete forward. And that's what makes him so difficult to defend against.
Okay, but, you know, we gotta address it, right? Like the Ronaldo comparisons.
Right. It's inevitable, I think. You know, any young Portuguese forward is going to get measured against the legend.
But it's a heavy mantle to bear. But I think it's also important to remember that, like, he is his own player.
He is.
You know what I mean?
He's got his own style, strengths, weaknesses.
And I think the comparisons are, like, a little unfair.
They are a bit unfair. I mean, Ronaldo, he's a once-in-a-generation talent.
Yeah.
I mean, his goal-scoring record is just...
It's crazy, yeah.
Ramos is a different type of player, I think.
In what way?
More of a team player, more involved in the build-up. He's not just a goal machine. He's a complete footballer.
So you're saying, like, judge him on his own merits, not in relation to Ronaldo.
Yeah. He's Gonçalo Ramos, not the next Ronaldo. And I think he's already proving that he can carve out his own legacy in the sport.
It's funny you say that because I was just thinking, like, the pressure on these young players these days.
Well, it's immense.
Especially when they're, like, they're labeled as, like, the next big thing.
Especially now with social media.
Yeah.
The scrutiny is just constant.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's a critic, right?
Yeah.
So for Ramos to be able to deal with that, stay focused.
It's remarkable.
It really is.
You can see that maturity in his game.
Yeah.
He's not just about, like, the flashy goals or individual moments. Like, he understands that it's about the team contributing to the collective.
Yeah. Speaking of the team, how has he been, like, received by his teammates at PSG? I mean, that's a locker room.
Full of egos.
Full of superstars, right?
From everything I've seen, I think, he's integrated pretty seamlessly. I think he's well respected for his work ethic, for his talent. And, there seems to be a good rapport there with, Mbappe, Neymar, guys like that.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that Mbappe kind of took him under his wing a little bit, like, kind of mentoring him.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Mbappe, despite his age, he's a natural leader.
Yeah.
And, Ramos seems like the kind of guy who's eager to learn,
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because you think about, like, there's different paths to greatness in football. Some guys are, like, instant sensations. They just, like, they burst onto the scene. And then you got other guys who are, like, late bloomers. They take a little bit longer to find their footing. Where does Ramos fit on that?
I think he's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
He had that breakout moment at the World Cup.
Yeah.
They kind of, like we talked about, launched him into superstardom.
Yeah.
But he was building towards that for years.
Right.
It's not an overnight success story. It's a story of hard work, dedication, willingness to learn, to adapt.
Yeah. And that's, I think, what makes it so compelling, right? Because it's like a reminder that, like, there's no shortcuts. You know what I mean?
You're right.
It takes time, it takes patience, it takes a belief in yourself.
And luck. You got to be lucky too, right? You got to be in the right place at the right time. You got to get those opportunities that can change everything. And, Ramos, he's had those moments, but he's made the most of them. He seized those chances and proved that he belongs, at this level.
So looking ahead then, what's next for Gonçalo Ramos? What are your, like, predictions? Where do you see his career going?
I mean, the sky's the limit, honestly. He's got everything he needs to become one of the best players in the world. I think he's at a perfect club to develop, surrounded by world-class talent, playing for top-level coaches.
Do you think he stays at PSG long-term, or do you think, in a couple years we see him, like, move on to another big club?
It's hard to say. Football, it changes so quickly.
Yeah.
But he's in a great spot. Right? He's playing regularly. He's scoring goals. He's part of a winning team. At 23, he's got time to figure out his next move.
What about his legacy? We talked about the Ronaldo comparisons, but, like, what kind of mark do you think he leaves on the sport?
I think he could define an era in Portuguese football. I think he could be that leader, the talisman that guides them to international glory. But, even beyond that, I think he'll be remembered as a player who embodied, like, the modern game, skilled, athletic, intelligent, and adaptable.
Well said. Well, it's been a pleasure, to really dive deep into his career. It's amazing, from those early days at Benfica to where he is now at PSG.
What a journey.
And it's clear his story's not finished yet.
It's just getting started.
So we'll be watching. We hope you enjoyed this exploration of Gonçalo Ramos's career. Until next time, keep exploring.